Basic astrology. Hopefully you've been reading some books and getting caught up or are somewhat proficient in astrology already. If not, you're just going to have to try to keep up, because all of this is going to be important when we get to planetary magic. There are three basic components to basic astrology: the planets, the signs, and the houses. The planets are the power. They are the energetic forces that are going to be influencing. There are 7 traditional planets in astrology. There are 10 in modern astrology. Both traditional and modern astrology have their merit. However, we're going to be focusing on traditional astrology. Modern astrology adds the outermost planets, such as Neptune, Uranus, and Pluto. But these planets move so slowly that they're more of a generational influence. The only times I really consider them is when they're aspecting another planet, such as a conjunction, an opposition, or a square. For example, if somebody had Pluto conjunct Venus in their second house, conjunct means conjoined, right next to, I would certainly take that into consideration, because that person would probably be very controlling in both money and love. But for now, we're only going to be concerned with the 7 traditional planets. Signs. Signs are the qualities the powers of the planets are going to express themselves through. You've heard the expression looking through rose-colored glasses, which is Taurus, by the way. That's kind of what the planets do in the signs. Their raw power is going to be filtered and expressed through certain lenses and filters of the signs. And some planets do well in certain signs and others do not. An ice cube is going to do really well at maintaining its shape and form while it's still in the freezer. But you take it out into room temperature and that ice cube is going to melt. The planets are going to behave differently depending on which sign they're in. Every sign is ruled over by a particular planet, and if you're using modern astrology, some are even co-ruled by a planet as well. There are 12 signs, and each sign will correspond to one of the 4 elements: earth, air, fire, and water. And the elements themselves will relate to one of 3 particular qualities: cardinal, fixed, or mutable. 4 elements times 3 qualities equals 12 signs. The houses. The houses are that area of life which these influences are going to affect and influence. There are 12 signs and there are also 12 houses. And each of the houses are also ruled over by a particular planet. So, once you know what all the planets, signs, and houses mean and correspond to, you're on your way to knowing basic astrology. The rest is just knowing where the planets are in relation to each other. The wheel itself, the chart itself, is a circle and therefore has 360 degrees. So that means that each sign has 30 degrees. Certain angles of degrees in relation to the planets to each other will be considered harmonious and others will be considered disharmonious. The harmonious aspects include the sextile, which is 60 degrees. Which is a milder influence compared to the trine of 120 degrees. Now, a rare grand trine of 3 planets in a perfect triangle is about the best you can get. The geometry has its importance. The disharmonious aspects include the square, which is 2 planets at 90 degrees. The energies of planets in a square aspect to each other cross. One wants to go one way, the other wants to go another way. And so there's a conflict. Gives new meaning to the term used in the 50s and 60s even of that person's a square. He's uncool. Now, as I said, the energies of the planets cross each other, and therefore the uncrossing ritual can help alleviate some of the influences of this type of aspect for a while. If you want to know where your quote-unquote personal demons are, which every magician must face sooner or later. You look to your squares and your oppositions in your chart. That's where the chinks in the armor of the perfect circle lie. Oppositions, 2 planets at 180 degrees opposite each other, forming a polar opposition to each other. Where with the square the energies merely crossed each other, and opposition is a flat-out planetary war. Planets in opposition will battle endlessly back and forth with each other. This is by far the worst aspect you can have. Now, conjunctions, those planets which are conjoined to each other, right next to each other, can go either way, depending upon the planet, sign, and house involved. Some planets naturally play nice with each other, others do not. And so a conjunction can either be harmonious or disharmonious. These are the most important aspects in basic astrology. There are others you'll learn along the way, however, these will get you off and running. Each aspect has about an 8-degree play on either side, meaning 2 planets can be at 98 degrees and still be considered square. The more exact it is, the stronger it is. 2 planets can be 8 degrees from each other and still be conjunct, so keep that in mind. The next thing that we consider in astrology is the transits. The transits are where the planets are in real time. In someone's natal birth chart, the planets will be fixed where they were at the time of your birth. They don't move, they stay there. However, we look at the transit of the planets where they are in real time, and again, we apply the degrees, the aspects, between those planets stationary in the birth chart and the transit planets that are moving. And so a planet in transit will swing around the chart, and it will line up with other planets in the aspects that we mentioned: sextile, trine, square, opposition, conjunction, whatever. And it will give you an influence. These influences of the transits come and go quite predictably. And that's really all there is to basic astrology. I mean, there are other things such as fixed stars and asteroids and things of that nature, but that's advanced stuff. We won't be getting into any of that in the foreseeable future. We will, however, be breaking these things down, the planets, signs, and houses, into their correspondences so that you can go off and begin reading charts. And I will be throwing in things that are not commonly known so that those of you with basic astrological knowledge can learn something also, instead of just sitting there being bored. Now, I may bounce back and forth between astrology and magic, depending on what I feel I need to talk about at the time. As such, I'll probably be putting the astrology into its own playlist in order to keep those particular lessons all together. So, that will do it for the basics of astrology, and it only took 8.5 minutes. It's very, very easy to pick up. And we'll begin to expand upon all this when I see you next time. Take care.